You're useless. Just sit there and answer the phone, old man. You probably can't even use a computer, can you? The system development department was in chaos due to a sudden cyberattack. A younger employee, who always looked down on me for not having a college degree, confidently took a seat in front of the computer. Watch this. I'll have this fixed in no time. But the moment he started, his face went pale with shock. No way. How is this happening? The cyberattack, which had briefly stopped, had started again. Cries of panic filled the office as employees held their heads in despair. As everyone began to lose hope, I finally hit my breaking point. Step aside. I'll take care of it. 30 seconds later, the office fell into complete silence. Everyone who had once dismissed me as useless held their breath as they watched me. Incredible. Who are you? And so, I was about to reveal my true identity. A major IT corporation with global partners and top-tier clients, including megabanks. I, Scott, stood outside gazing up at its headquarters. 10 years. I've been away for a long time. Seeing it up close again really makes me feel like I'm back. As I smiled, my old friend standing beside me said, "Welcome back." His son, who was just a middle schooler 10 years ago, was now a working adult. He had graduated from college and was building his career. Time truly flies. I only planned to be gone for 2 or 3 years, but somehow it stretched this long. Oh no, don't apologize. It wasn't your fault. Anyway, I'm back, and I'll be in your care again. For certain reasons, I had been away from the company for 10 years. That made my return deeply emotional, yet at the same time, I felt an exciting sense of a fresh start. All right, time to go. I gave my cheeks a light slap to pump myself up and stepped into the building. I'm a 48-year-old system engineer and said, starting today, I'd be working in this company's system development and management department. Wow, the place has changed a lot inside. Oh, but the cafeteria looks the same. I wonder if they still have grilled mackerel set meals. Hey, long time no see. We've both gotten older, huh? Let's see. Oh yeah, this is it. I took my time strolling through the familiar office, exchanging greetings with old colleagues, before finally reaching my destination. It was 10 minutes before the official workday started. The office was already full of employees, some of whom had already begun working. They all looked serious and young. That was my first impression. It seemed like most of the team had changed, and I didn't recognize a single face. Except for one. The man sitting in the department head seat spotted me, and his eyes widened in surprise. Scott. It was Henry, a former colleague and an old friend with whom I had kept in touch occasionally over the past 10 years. He walked over and leaned in to speak in a hushed voice. Henry, long time no see. Congrats on becoming department head. You're a bit late on that. It's been 3 years already. I wanted to say it in person. Looking forward to working with you again, starting today. Same here. By the way, Henry, about that matter we discussed. Of course, leave it to me. He gave me a firm nod, just like in the old days, always the most dependable guy in the team. I recalled our younger years when he encouraged me during grueling death marches, saying, "Don't give up. We'll get through this." Even back then, I knew he was bound to climb the ranks. All right then, I appreciate it, Henry. Out of habit, I nearly extended my right hand for a handshake, but quickly pulled it back and bowed instead. From now on, he was my boss. I had to adjust. Henry seemed to understand and, as the department head, gestured toward a corner of the office. Scott, that's your desk. I'll introduce you to everyone during the morning meeting. Thank you, I'll head over now. I bowed again and walked through the modern, spacious office. Along the way, I caught murmurs. Who's that? Probably a mid-career hire. It was proof that Henry had kept our promise. Nice, this is a great spot. Outside, the sky was a perfect, cloudless blue. It felt like the universe itself was celebrating my fresh start. Maybe I'd build good relationships with my new colleagues. With that hope, I waited eagerly for the start of work chime. But I never expected what would happen next. As I briefly mentioned yesterday, this is Scott, who's joining us as a mid-career hire. Please introduce yourself. I'm Scott. I look forward to working with you all. At Henry's prompting, I bowed to my much younger colleagues. Scattered applause followed, but their expressions varied. Some looked relieved to have another set of hands, some skeptical as if wondering whether I was competent, some indifferent. And then, there was one more expression. Who is he? After the meeting, I lowered my voice and asked Henry about a certain male employee. Henry smirked knowingly, saying, "You'll know once you hear his last name. That's Owens, our youngest team member, only 24. Owens. Wait, no way." My voice almost rose, but I caught myself and shut my mouth. That surname was familiar, because it was the same as our company president's. Yep, you guessed it. He's Mr. Owens' only son. So, that kid. His name was Spencer Owens. I knew he had joined the company, but he looked completely different from the photos I had seen a few years ago. No wonder I didn't recognize him at first glance. Something wrong? No, I was just curious. Henry chuckled. Good. Then this works out perfectly. Spencer, come here for a second. At Henry's call, a fresh-faced young man with a stylish appearance jogged over. You called, Henry? I need you to train Scott here. Me? Do your best. Henry patted Spencer on the shoulder and walked off without even waiting for a reply. And just like that, the friendly atmosphere vanished. Ugh, what am I even supposed to teach someone like this? The sneer on his face confirmed what I had suspected. During the morning meeting, I had noticed his odd expression. It was as if he had already decided I was beneath him, a twisted look filled with condescension. And now, that same expression was plastered on his face. I'm Scott, looking forward to working with you. I graduated from N University, a private school. What about you, old man? Ah, what an introduction. I was taken aback. N University was a prestigious institution, but to throw out an academic superiority card right away. Well, I wasn't hiding anything, nor was I ashamed. So, I simply told him the truth. Due to some family circumstances, I had to drop out of high school. So that means, no way, you're a middle school graduate? Damn, I didn't think people like you actually existed. Ah, yep, I sure do. Spencer laughed excitedly, causing a small scene. None of the other employees even glanced our way, all focused on their work. That alone told me this was a common occurrence. Honestly, I don't know what kind of mistake led you here, but a high school dropout, and an old man at that, has no place in a system company. You're completely useless. Well, we'll see. Even an old guy like me might be of some use. No, here, take a look. He smirked arrogantly, as if he had built it himself, and led me to his desk, pointing at his computer. This is a computer. You've probably never seen one before. I bet your last job was some manual labor gig that didn't require a degree. Haha, I actually do know what a computer is. Oh, so you do. But you've never used one, right? Couldn't afford one, I'm guessing? Aha! His tone left no room for any other possibility. I'd been looked down on because of my education plenty of times before, but this relentless barrage was something else. Even my supply of polite chuckles was running low. I'll do my best to learn. I hope to be useful to the team as soon as possible. You'll probably hit retirement before that happens. Not that I think you'll last that long here. Anyway, just watch and see how things work today. He gestured for me to sit beside him and pulled up his work screen. Right now, I'm doing regular maintenance on T-Bank's website. That's all Henry trusts me with, this kind of grunt work. I can do way more than this. Despite his complaints, his hands moved skillfully across the keyboard. I had to admit, I was a little impressed. Maybe he wasn't all talk after all. This isn't just grunt work. It's an important job for NSE. What would a middle school dropout know? If you're going to talk big, why don't you at least get a high school diploma? Haha, you might be right. People with low education just don't try hard enough. Though, it's probably too late for you now. Haha. For a second, I thought I might have misjudged him. I forced a smile, but I was starting to doubt my own judgment. I'll give you some work, old man. A week had passed since my return to HQ. That's when Spencer called me over to his desk and bluntly said, "Oh, work, huh? I heard you're actually in SE." I still don't believe it, but if even someone like Henry, who actually has a degree, says so, I guess it must be true. It's true. I never went to school for it, though. I'm self-taught. Self-taught, huh? I doubt that's useful, but whatever. Here. Spencer tossed a stack of documents onto my desk with a loud thud. And this is? The specs, SPECS. T-Bank wants to revamp their website. Everything's in there, so read it yourself. Got it. I flipped through the documents as instructed. It wasn't a particularly difficult project. In fact, it was a beginner-friendly task, something even a junior SE could handle with ease. I see. This was actually my assignment, but honestly, this kind of grunt work isn't worth my time. Well, I wouldn't call it that. Like I mentioned before, this is still an important job for INSEE. You really don't get it, do you? People who've only done low-level work never do. Our company manages systems for major banks. Compared to that, why should I waste my time on a job from some small-time bank? There was an undertone of frustration in his voice. Just as I started to get a sense of what was really bothering him, he waved me off dismissively. Come on, get started already. This kind of thing would take me just a day, but I'll be generous and give you a whole week, old man. I appreciate it, but judging by the scope, I should be able to wrap it up in about 3 days. Oh, feeling confident, huh? All right then, it's all yours. But if you don't finish it, I didn't need to hear the rest to know exactly what he was going to say. I took the documents back to my desk and read through them more carefully. Yes, 3 days. No, actually, 2 should be enough. At least, that's what I thought at the time. Wow, would you look at that? It's already the morning of day 3. Don't tell me. You're still not done? No, but I should have it ready by the end of the day. Uh-huh. You said the same thing in yesterday's progress report. Are you really sure about that? Of course. Spencer loomed over me, grinning from ear to ear, as if he was enjoying the idea that I might fail. And the truth was, I hadn't finished the job. Even on the deadline day, I had barely gotten past the halfway mark. I gave you a whole week. You're the one who said you'd be done in 3 days. Guess a high school dropout doesn't even understand his own limits. Someone like that can't be trusted with work now, can they? Those words, he had been saving them. And now, he was throwing them at me with everything he had. It's fine. I'll have it ready for review this afternoon. Huh? Oh, no rush. It's not like this is an important project. Take your time, old man. Work at your own pace. No, it's fine. Oh, is that so? I must have let my emotions slip for a second. Spencer seemed slightly taken aback by my firm response. Well, whatever. Do what you want. I've got better things to do than babysit you. You're busy? Now that you mention it. The department had been particularly hectic these past few days. Even my colleagues looked unusually tense. Did something happen? Did we take on a difficult project or something? It's worse than that. We're being hacked. Hacked. Apparently, various systems had been experiencing issues lately. Some were dealing with virus intrusions. Others had unexplained errors. So far, they had managed to handle the incidents while they were still minor. But given that this company managed the systems of multiple banks, the potential damage could be catastrophic if things escalated. Our company's under a cyberattack. We don't know who's behind it or what they're after. That's why we're so damn busy. It could be a thrill seeker, someone just trying to cause chaos. Whatever. It's got nothing to do with you. If you can't even handle a basic job, there's no way you're useful for dealing with hackers. Is that so? Of course it is. Seriously, what the hell is Henry thinking? I know we're short-staffed, but hiring someone this useless isn't going to help. Muttering complaints, Spencer returned to his desk. I paused my work and began investigating something that had been bothering me. And then, just as I thought, I really hope it doesn't escalate. I had found the cause of the hacking. All I could do was silently hope it wouldn't turn into a disaster. But my prayers went unanswered. That afternoon, chaos erupted in the office. We sincerely apologize. We're handling it immediately. We'll restore the system as soon as possible. Keep the damage to a minimum. Phones rang nonstop. My colleagues bowed repeatedly as they spoke to clients over the phone. The most important thing is protecting the users. Prioritize restoring critical systems for the banks with the highest traffic. Move it. Henry's voice boomed through the office, and in response, the sound of furious typing grew louder. Even the most skilled engineers looked overwhelmed. That's how severe this cyberattack was, and we were experiencing it in real time. Find the weak points quickly. We just fixed that, and it's already down again. It's like they know our systems inside out. What the hell are we supposed to do? Panic and exhaustion were taking their toll, and a sense of defeat began creeping through the office. Meanwhile, the phones kept ringing. Most were from clients, banks across the country whose systems were affected. The rest were complaints from other departments demanding we fix it now. I'll take care of this in no time. Old man, just stick to answering phones. Spencer chugged an energy drink and barked orders at me. And he wasn't bluffing. With incredible speed, he pounded away at his keyboard, fixing one error after another and restoring various systems. Not bad, Spencer. Obviously, I'm an elite after all. For once, his arrogance actually suited the moment. Even our exhausted colleagues murmured in admiration, some even praising him. Fueled by their approval, his confidence swelled. But then, Spencer suddenly gasped and lunged toward his screen. It was as if the system itself was mocking his overconfidence. A new alert had appeared, one signaling an even more critical failure. No way. I fixed it. His trembling voice triggered another wave of panic. Screams erupted across the office. The attack had resumed. At the same time, the phones started ringing again, plunging the office back into chaos. Stay calm. We'll get this under control. Just hang in there. Henry's rallying cry went unheard. Some colleagues slumped in despair, muttering, "It's over." Spencer was frozen, shaking, on the verge of tears. I had been silently watching, but I had finally reached my limit. Of course this happened. If you think about the cause, it's obvious. What? Ignoring Spencer's stunned expression, I headed back to my desk. In about 30 seconds, I powered up my computer and began working. The office instantly fell silent. This should stop any further attacks. Now, everyone, focus on restoring the systems as quickly as possible. I scanned the room as I spoke. Henry, his expression suddenly alert, followed up with a firm order. Do as he says. I'll update all relevant parties. Get to work. My colleagues, who had been frozen in shock, scrambled back to their keyboards at his command. Only one person remained motionless, Spencer. Who the hell are you? He confronted me right after the restoration process was complete. At the time, I was discussing the next steps with someone in the hallway. That someone was none other than Mr. Owens himself, a father of Spencer, who had rushed over after hearing how I had resolved the crisis. Spencer, don't be rude. Mr. Owens, I just need to talk to this guy. This guy. Who do you think you're talking to? Show some respect to him. What? Spencer flinched as his father suddenly scolded him, his face turning bright red. What do you mean? Scott was my senior back when he worked here. He's the one who taught me everything I know. You have no right to refer to him as this guy. Now, Mr. Owens. It's fine. He simply didn't know. But still, it's also my fault for not telling him, right? At my reassurance, Mr. Owens finally calmed down. Then we resumed our interrupted conversation. Honestly, I expected nothing less from you, Scott. You were already brilliant back then, but after spending 10 years in Silicon Valley, you've only become sharper. Silicon Valley? Spencer, unable to stay silent, jumped into the conversation. Seeing no way around it, Mr. Owens explained my background to him. You know about it, don't you? The heart of the global IT industry, where the world's top tech companies operate. Of course, I know that, but Scott spent 10 years working for one of our partner companies in Silicon Valley, and it was because of me. It happened when Mr. Owens had just inherited the company from his late father. A partner company had made a demand. Send us a top-notch engineer, or we might have to end the partnership. Losing my father, who was the president, so suddenly left the company in a really unstable place. I couldn't say no. I basically offered Scott up like some sort of sacrifice. And not just that, it's been 10 whole years. It's fine, Mr. Owens. Because of that, I brought back a wealth of cutting-edge knowledge. It was a challenging but fulfilling decade. A middle school graduate. Spencer's question was so bluntly honest that I couldn't help but laugh. Come to think of it, Mr. Owens had a habit of making unfiltered remarks as well. Like father, like son. Spencer, how dare you? It's fine. He's just wondering how someone with no formal education could become a highly sought-after engineer, right? Yeah. His hesitation hinted at an unwillingness to fully accept it. But facts were facts. I was a middle school graduate, and I was also a recognized top-tier engineer. I was born into a single-mother household. My mother was frail, and when I was in my first year of high school, she fell seriously ill. I had no choice but to drop out and start working. At first, I juggled jobs at construction sites and cleaning services, anything that didn't require a diploma. But the hospital bills kept piling up, and no matter how hard I worked, we barely got by. The only way out of that situation was to earn more money. But at the time, I had no skills to make that happen. So I taught myself. Using my mother's old computer, pushing through exhaustion after long shifts, I learned everything I could on my own. I chose to become an SE because learning programming doesn't require a formal education. For someone like me, who had been constantly reminded of my low academic status, that realization was a ray of hope. I sacrificed sleep, studied relentlessly, and kept practicing until I gained an unshakable confidence that no amount of ridicule could break. The one who hired me was your grandfather, the former president. He did it despite opposition from other employees. I remember my father mentioning it. He said that during the hiring process, the most confident candidate was also the one with the lowest education. My mother was able to overcome her illness thanks to the former president. He judged me by my abilities, not my degree. That's why, 10 years ago, when the company faced a crisis after his sudden passing, I was the first to step forward. That's why I was able to make the decision to go to America, a place I had never even set foot in before. But if you were so skilled, then why? Why was my work so slow? Spencer's doubt stemmed from the programming languages used in this company. The languages used here and the ones I worked with over there are completely different. What? To be honest, the programming language this company still relies on is outdated. Japan is one of the only countries still using it. That's why it took me a while to recall everything. That stings. But maybe it's also because of your age, Scott? Even you're saying things like that now, Mr. Owens? Spencer stared wide-eyed at me and his dad laughing together. His body trembled slightly. And then he exploded. Then why didn't you say anything? Were you just messing with me this whole time? You weren't willing to listen. You had already decided I was a worthless high school dropout, so there was no point in trying to explain. But Henry lied too. He said you were a mid-career hire. I told Henry to say that, Spencer. Wait, you did, Dad? Spencer was stunned. I nodded in confirmation. This was all planned. And it was something Mr. Owens had strongly wished for, not just as a company president, but as a father. Many veteran employees here know who Scott is. Eventually, the truth would have come out. But that was fine. What are you trying to say, Dad? I wanted to see the real you, Spencer. What? Mr. Owens had been struggling with a major decision: whether or not his son should inherit the company one day. He had discreetly asked employees about Spencer's work ethic, but they all just told me what they thought I wanted to hear. As your father, I knew there was more to the story that didn't sit right with me. So, I asked the senior staff to make you Scott's training supervisor. So tell me, what did you think of my son? Mr. Owens turned to me. Spencer turned pale, lowering his gaze. He already knew what I was about to say. Let's start with the biggest issue, this cyber attack. Spencer, you were the cause. What? Scott, is that true? Both father and son gasped. Spencer, you uploaded source code online, didn't you? What? How do you? Is this true, Spencer? Spencer was visibly panicking, as if he had thought no one would find out. I had discovered it just before the cyber attack began. On my first day, when Spencer had smugly told me to watch and learn, he had shown me a piece of unfinished source code. That exact same code had been uploaded, completely exposed, on a public website accessible to anyone worldwide. That site is a useful platform where developers share code and showcase their skills, but it also carries risks. What if someone with bad intentions found source code related to a major bank system? Did you ever think about that, Spencer? It's like handing a thief the combination to a safe, and then leaving the front door wide open to welcome them in. An attack was inevitable. In fact, we're lucky the damage was the extent. We owe that to Henry. What? Imagine if Henry had treated you differently just because you're the president's son. What if he had entrusted you with something more critical, like managing the bank's transaction systems? This wouldn't have ended here. The reason you weren't given the jobs you wanted isn't just because you lack experience. The real issue is you, Spencer. Even in front of his father, I didn't hold back. Spencer's biggest flaw was his excessive pride. He believed he deserved recognition above all others. That arrogance had led directly to this crisis. No one told me. Told you what? That I wasn't supposed to upload source code online. It's not even in the company regulations. That's true, but you didn't think it through? You claim to be an elite, don't you? Even a high school dropout like me understands that much. Spencer's face turned bright red as he bit his lip. Does that frustrate you? For the record, I never saw anyone do something this reckless over there. In Silicon Valley, companies tend to develop their own systems rather than outsourcing. But more importantly, there just aren't many people as irresponsible as you. You're saying I'm irresponsible? Yes. Your careless actions put clients and the company at risk, and yet you refuse to acknowledge your mistake. That's the very definition of irresponsibility. Judging others solely by their credentials, changing your attitude based on who you're talking to, it all shows immaturity. You also lack the compliance awareness expected in this field. More than anything, you're missing the fundamental common sense required of NSA. I listed everything I had observed over the past week. With each point, Spencer lowered his head further, and Mr. Owens' gaze grew more severe. And well, that about covers it. I see. In other words, my son is unfit to be the next president, isn't he, Scott? Don't be so discouraged. You do have good qualities. Good qualities? Spencer mumbled, his spirit nearly broken. I nodded. Your potential. Your pride is high. This time, it led you in the wrong direction. But if harnessed correctly, that same pride can become passion and motivation. You know the saying, consistency is power? Consistency. Keep believing in your own abilities, but without looking down on others. If you can do that, you'll grow tremendously, maintaining a strong sense of pride while also respecting others. It was something Spencer likely couldn't grasp just yet, but someday he would look back and realize that today had been the turning point. You just wanted to prove how talented you were, right? To see if you could make it in the real world. You felt insecure, right? That's why you uploaded the source code, isn't it? Spencer's head shot up. Insecure? You, Spencer? Mr. Owens looked at his son in disbelief. Everyone has doubts, and the smarter you are, the more you overthink things. Right, Spencer? After a long silence, Spencer finally spoke, his voice subdued. In school, I was always the best at everything, and Dad always told me I was his pride and joy. I was proud of that too. I never even considered the possibility that this company would be full of people far more skilled than me. It turns out I'm just an ordinary guy. Whether I'm here or not doesn't even matter. I thought for sure Dad would be disappointed in me, and I was terrified of that. Spencer, faced with reality, he had clung even harder to the idea of his own excellence. He wanted validation. But without the work to back it up, he had resorted to reckless measures. I'm sorry. Huh? I blinked in surprise. Spencer had suddenly bowed his head. I finally understand that I'm not as great as I thought, and I owe that to you, Scott. I may not be talented, but I still want to take over this company one day. Please teach me what I'm lacking. Well, Mr. Owens, what do you think? Spencer, you fool. Honestly, leaving the final decision to Mr. Owens, I walked away. Behind me, I could hear Spencer still crying, repeatedly apologizing, and his father scolding him, but holding him firmly, like a father should. Feeling the tension in the air, I silently wished that Spencer wouldn't quit the company. Later, at his own strong request, Henry stepped down from his position as department manager. He did it so that I could take his place. It's a bit late to ask, but are you really sure about this? I've been thinking about it ever since you decided to return. Come on, new manager, give your speech. With a push on my back, I stepped forward once again to stand before my colleagues. As I introduced myself as the new department manager, this time I was greeted with loud applause and warm smiles from everyone. And among them, the one clapping the loudest was, "Congratulations on your promotion, Scott." "Thanks, Spencer, and I'm really glad that you decided to stay. I caused a lot of trouble for everyone, so I want to make up for it through my actions." Since then, he had faced suspension and a pay cut, and his actions had been made public. Many within the company believed he should be fired, but I went around convincing each and every one of them. He had lost confidence in himself, but deep down, he was incredibly talented. I believed he would change and eventually contribute to the company. I won't say I want someone to acknowledge me anymore. I'll prove my worth on my own. Will you watch over me, Scott? Of course. I'll always be watching, no matter what, Spencer. He chuckled, saying, "That sounds a little scary," but somehow he looked like he had grown a lot. Before long, I began working on improving the department. First, I focused on compliance training, ensuring that everyone became more aware of its importance. The desire to be recognized for one's efforts is something everyone has. If people don't learn how to control that feeling, the same kind of trouble could happen again. I also introduced a new development system to the workplace. Not only did it enhance security, but it also made it easier for employees to see their achievements and track their growth. I wanted each person to take pride in their work and recognize their own efforts and progress. This idea came to me while watching a certain employee. Seeing how hard he was trying, I wanted to support him in my own way. When one's efforts or talents go unnoticed, or when they realize they're not as capable as they thought, frustration can sometimes lead them down the wrong path. But what really matters is whether they can recognize their mistakes. And if there's someone nearby to help them realize it, then they'll always have a chance to start over. I want to continue watching over the subordinate who realized his mistakes and chose to turn things around. At the same time, I can't afford to fall behind the younger employees. As I said, I want to keep growing, now and always.